Now, I know you're listening to this podcast. I wish you could see this podcast because I get the luxury of doing these interviews over video, and we have Diego. I don't even know how to pronounce your last name correctly, Diego. Pronounce your
Oh,
last name so I say it right.
oh, Flaquer.
Flaquer. Okay. The
Yep, yep.
Q's and the U's get
Oh
all,
yeah, oh yeah.
yeah. I do always remind people, I'm educated from Troy University, so you gotta talk
Oh, I
slow.
know. Oh, I know, my friend. I know, my friend.
So Diego is the assistant coach at the University of Miami, and he is literally on the beach right now. It's kind of it's really mean actually showing off the features of Miami, Florida here. But thanks for joining us today, Diego. How you doing, my man?
Good, 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 man. Thanks for having me, Mike. It's been a pleasure, buddy.
Absolutely. This is, I think I say this every time, so this may bring it down a little bit, but this is true. I'm excited about this one because Diego and I have known each other for, I don't know, it feels like forever. That's
Oh yeah.
stretching
Since
it a little bit.
2001 Alabama State meet. Yep.
Yeah, that's right. That's it, man. It's a great ride, and it's been so awesome to see from where I met you, where you were at in this world of track and field, this profession, and where you are today. And honestly, Diego, I usually kind of do this at the end. I'm excited to see what the next 20 years brings for you because I know it's just going
Absolutely.
to be a lot. So I'm pumped for that. So let's talk about the University of Miami. You're the assistant coach there. I think you're in charge of the men's sprints and hurdles.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'm oversee the men's and men's sprints and hurdles. Obviously, myself and Coach Dean collaborate the everything. Obviously, I assist her with the women as well. Obviously, she's the head coach of the entire program. This is I just finished my fourth season, so starting my fifth season at in August with the program. And obviously, no, it's been an exciting time. It's been an exciting time. Obviously, it's a young program. Obviously, we've had some success, individual success on the men's program. Some kids got into the national meet, got into the regional meets, broken some records and things like that. But obviously, we still have things to get done. But in the same token, I'm excited to the future that the program has for sure. And it helps when you're working for the Hall of Famer and Coach Dean that's been here, I believe, going on 29 or 30 years. So
Yeah.
that's she knows the lay of the ground as better than anyone for sure.
I was going to ask you about about Amy for two reasons. One is a couple of years ago, I was having a conversation. You might have been in this conversation. We were trying to name head coaches or coaches at all that had been at an institution for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure, I know we came up with Amy's name because we knew Amy had been
Yes.
there for a long time, but we got up to like 10 people and then it was a
Mm-hmm.
struggle to think of the next few
Yes.
coaches. And Amy is also one of the few, but seems to be growing, female head coaches as
Yes, sir.
well. You've got Beth up in Tennessee, Carol at USC, Rosalind at Southern Illinois, Carbondale. It
Mm-hmm.
seems like we're starting to realize that there's value in everybody, not just
Oh, absolutely,
the
absolutely.
typical. But Amy, I've always been impressed with. She is like, to me, from the business side of it, working with her in the program and with the equipment side, she seems to be one of the like consummate professionals. I mean, she is the CEO of University of Miami Track and
Oh,
Field,
absolutely.
and as you mentioned, Hall of Fame, super successful, does a great job, super personable. What's it like working with Amy Dean? Give us some inside secrets here. What's it like?
No, I mean, working for Amy Deem is you have to know, that she has a great level of expectation. I think she's done a great job being a leader. From my perspective, as relatively, you've been in the game for about 16, 17 years or so now in the coaching game, and obviously she's molded me and challenged me in a lot of positive ways. And in the same token, she was there for me during difficult times, and she was there for me during when maybe other I would say other people, other coaches wouldn't have been, because he becomes more businesslike. But the one thing about her is that she demands perfection. She's extremely organized, so she's going to challenge you to be a certain way and apply the principles of things that she wants to do as far as her vision is concerned from the program. And obviously when I tell people, recruits, parents, I mean, when you Google University of Miami, she's right there. I mean, she, I believe at one point they're going to have a statue with her name. Obviously, she's one of the most successful coaches here,
Yeah.
if not the most successful coach at the University of Miami, which are very few. I believe there's 3 or 4 coaches that have been within the University of Miami as long-term as she has. I believe it's our diving coach and our tennis coach are the few within the athletic department that have been close to the length of time that she has been.
That's impressive. That tells me a little bit
Absolutely.
about the University of Miami, because I would have guessed that Amy was the longest tenured at University of Miami, because she's been there for so
Yes, she's
long.
been pretty close to it. Yes, sir.
That's impressive that there's 2 other coaches in that same realm.
Yes.
It says a lot about the Miami athletic department and the school as itself, that people stay for a long time.
No, absolutely. I think Blake James, obviously, who also is, kind of worked this way up, is now as our athletic director within our program, has really committed to the program, to the track and field program, and as well as to those coaches are committed to making University of Miami what it is today, a great, academic institution, in a great city and a great, area, in Coral Gables. I think the biggest misconception that people get of University of Miami, even when you probably visited for when you came and came to oversaw the new equipment and things like that, is most people think University of Miami is in downtown Miami or, in South Beach. And obviously we are in Coral Gables. And, I think Coral Gables is the 3rd in zip codes as the highest, gross incomes in the state of Florida. But obviously, it's a unique city, it's a unique place. And obviously, it fits me well, because obviously I'm Colombian. So the diversity that the city brings is awesome. Because I think you can you want a little bit of Cuban, which I took you to Havana Harry's. You can have a little
We were
bit
going
of
to
that.
talk about that. Don't worry. Absolutely. I was going to
So,
say Miami, Coral Gables, to me, the 2 things, and I share these stories all the time. My wife and I talk about this all the time. One of the top 3 sushi places I've ever been has been at Miami.
awesome.
And then the number 1, what type of, it
was
wasn't
Cuban. He was Cuban. He was Cuban.
Cuban
Yeah.
food.
Yep.
And I think I texted you, I was on the road, I think I was in Boston, and there was a Cuban infusion restaurant at the hotel, and I ate there, and I think I sent you a picture, and I was like, hey, this reminds me. Yeah, I'm in love with the plantains.
Yeah, sweet plantains. Yep.
I'm
Oh,
in love with
absolutely.
those now because of you.
Oh no, that place is awesome. I mean, it gives you a little bit of everything. It's Havana Harry's, obviously it's Cuban, but obviously they have a little bit of everything. And obviously you got Colombian, you got Jamaican. We have that's the I would say that's the so unique part of University of Miami. You have your pockets of different South American countries and Central American countries, but then if you want to go on the other, go to the other side a little bit, and now you get a little bit of Jamaican, Haitian. So it's a great melting pot. And I think that's the one thing that makes it so unique, other than just the big name of Miami.
Right.
And I think that's the one thing that, if you want to be artistic, you can be that. If you want to go to concerts, you have that. If you want to be into the sporting events, you got obviously the professional sports here. So I'm actually into cycling right now, into riding, road cycling. And I mean, I've joined a couple groups, and it's been fun because you get to ride all through Miami and get to see the different areas that obviously I kind of stay in my own area. I live in Dayland, so I stay in my own little world, but it's been fun, getting to see different areas of Miami, seeing, the Everglades.
Are you wearing the bike suit and all that too?
I'm going with the half. I'm wearing the shorts. I haven't built up to the top yet. And it's now a lot. Those shirts are expensive, man.
Is that right?
The cycling shirts, I was surprisingly how expensive they were. And I'm like, you know what? I'll stick with the padded shorts for right now. Because when you start doing those 30, 40s, you do start feeling them. But no, it's been fun, man. It's been fun.
We've got some teammates here at Gill that are into it, because we have, here in East Central Illinois, we got some pretty good straightaway highways. We don't have Everglades and stuff to ride through, unfortunately, but we got lots of good, they can do 30, 50-mile bike rides and stuff. And, as I pass by them,
I've seen a lot of coaches on Facebook. I believe the VCU coach, I saw him on the bike. He put 40 the other day. He and I were messaging back and forth, and it's funny just how during this time I'm like, I got to pick up something. I got to improve in something. I wanna and So I was like, you know what, I need to pick up a new hobby. So
Did you pick that up during this coronavirus
yeah,
time?
during the quarantine, yes, yeah, I did.
Oh,
That was my thing
really?
that I
Good
was
for
like, you know
you.
what, I need to pick it up, and I was like, something different.
Good for you.
I started doing more of the reading or what you call audiobooks.
Hmm.
Started getting more into the audiobooks,
Hmm.
obviously communicating more with family. I think that's the one thing of what this quarantine has done is brought in the values and the things that, whether it's family, whether it's your godly relationship, whether it's finances, whether it's exercising. I think it's brought in things that probably we ignore and or not ignore, but because of the busyness of life,
Hmm.
and it's kind of has allowed us to be able to to get back at it. Obviously, I do miss coaches. I do miss coaching. I do miss my kids. I have one guy that I work with that's post collegiate that runs for Nigeria, and I go and visit with practice with Coach Dean when she's with Shakima Wembley and with Margaret that ran in Notre Dame. So obviously, I'll go there and we train at the same track that's open, and we just that's our couple times a week that we get a little bit of track. Then after
Yeah.
that, we just do our part for sure.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you said about during this quarantine time what has brought back some values and things that we put on the back burner. And I think you're right. I don't think anybody like health for example.
Absolutely,
I don't think anybody says, oh, health is not important. I think it's just about priorities. And I think we
absolutely.
sometimes, because of career and maybe family and hobbies, things like that, things just health becomes the 10th out of 10 thing instead of maybe the number one or number two.
Absolutely.
But I also think you said that you think quarantine maybe has brought back those type of values. I would challenge that and say only if you're a positive, natural positive
Hmm.
outlook person, then you think of some things that maybe you put on the back burner, like family,
Hmm.
health, things like that.
Hmm.
I think if you're just one of these just miserable people, and I haven't met any coaches like this, to be real frank,
Absolutely.
but if you're just like everything sucks, you're just a whine and rise and whine type of person instead of a rise and grind type of
Hmm.
person, I think it gets worse for you. I think you just sit there and complain about everything. And I love that you picked this cycling up during this quarantine time, because that's what I have seen routinely from coaches that didn't sit around and lick their wounds, didn't sit around and complain. They said, okay, I've got this time. Well, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to become a better coach? Am I going to become a better
Oh,
father, a better
absolutely.
mother? Am I going to be better health? Am I going to pick up cycling? That's what I've seen an uprising in coaches around the country. And it's been honestly kind of awesome. It makes me real hopeful that next year is going to be just an amazing season, because we miss track, like you said. And so next year we're just going to show out as much as possible as
Oh,
coaches and
absolutely.
athletes.
No, and I think the other part of it that's brought in is the professional development and relationship that you've had with other coaches. I have a happy hour group with one of my friends, with Keith Hurston and Giles McDonald's, Austin Bros, Leo Settle. Then they have set up some calls with we've had Coach Mike Holloway speak on it. We had Ross and Joseph speak on it, and Dana Boone. I mean, we've had
Wow.
Jeremy Fisher. So it's been a great, professional development, obviously. And again, allows us that opportunity to grow and learn. And sometimes you get so much information from all these great coaches and individuals that you look up to. I mean, like Cale Tober, I mean, he's a great friend of mine, and he's shared with me a ton of information. I joined in a couple of his calls, and as well as Ben Sanderson, Ty Lane. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
all have done so many great stuff. Chris Parno, I've joined in several of his calls that I've had. So it's been great to hear from different coaches that we don't get a chance to communicate with as well, and you follow their success, and you pick up a couple things, and I'll say, well, maybe I can apply that here at UM, because obviously we're all in different environments, different
Right.
situations, for sure.
Well, I love that that thirst for hunger, and that never settling, never thinking, oh well, I've got it all. I do my program. I don't need to learn from a Chris Parno and Kaba and Vince and
Oh,
everything.
absolutely.
I love that aspect. I was so impressed when talking with Brooks Johnson.
Oh,
At
absolutely.
86 years old, I told him, I was like, Brooks, you have every excuse in the world. No one would look at Brooks and say, come on, why aren't you still learning? He's 86. He's done it all. And yet he is
Absolutely.
on so many of these Zoom calls, not only participating as far as a mentoring and teaching, but he's learning and listening. It's
Oh,
really
it's
amazing,
phenomenal, because
awesome.
and I mean, obviously with and I've been on some calls with obviously with Brooks that he has on Thursday evenings, and they've been amazing. You know, learning from John Smith and Clyde
Yeah.
Hart and some of the other amazing coaches. Coach Dima spoke on it as well. Obviously for me that's been a lot of fun. I've been in some calls with Victor Lopez that he's had with NACAC conference. I believe you also
Mm-hmm.
follow the group.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I'm the positive of that because I speak the language. I'm able to understand what they're saying. So
Mm-hmm.
I forward those to my dad, and even my dad, about to be 80 next week. He's, as a past national coach, he loves to stay current as much as he can, obviously. And so I try to send him some of those things, obviously, because to try to send him some of the American stuff, it gets a little harder because I got to translate everything. So, but which is good and bad. So, but no, it's been fun for sure, man.
Well, that's good transition there because you had mentioned earlier you're from Colombia.
Yes, sir.
That's not Columbia, Georgia, or Columbia, South Carolina. We're talking about Colombia, the country. So
Yes.
let's maybe take a step back. We enjoy that time at Miami, and we can't spend all of our time on the beach, Diego.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about your background. You came from Colombia. You grew up in Colombia. Your dad is a legend, and I don't use that term lightly in this case. I think the city track or the state track is named after your dad,
Yeah.
for crying out
Yes.
loud. Talk to us about Colombia growing up. How did you get into track? What's the track culture look like in Colombia?
I mean, obviously for me, obviously I'm the youngest. I'm the youngest of three. Obviously, my oldest brother lives in Paris, in France,
Wow.
with a little boy and his wife. My middle brother lives in Colombia, and he's married and they have a nephew as well. Obviously, I'm the youngest, and it's a pretty good age gap between us. So, the situation came where obviously I grew up in track and field. I got a picture at the age of 8 or 9, going over hurdles at a IAAF level 1 course that my dad was teaching. So,
Wow.
and I'll send it to you.
Yeah, I gotta
And
see
it
that.
was,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was funny because obviously since I was born, I was always with my dad.
Yeah, well, tell us
Unfortunately,
about your dad. I want to really honor him here because
no,
I
absolutely.
know him, but
Obviously,
let's talk about him.
my dad is, his name is Pedro Grajales. Obviously, my last name is Flaquer due to the fact that his sister adopted me so I could be a U.S. citizen. So
Mm.
obviously, my dad was a national coach in Colombia for many years. My dad was the national record holder in the 400 meters for 25 plus years, and I think he held the 200-meter record in the 200 for, I think, 15 or 20 years, I believe it was. I mean, he ran during the times with John Carlos and John Smith.
Oh yeah.
Alex Woodley was one of his coaches in college. My dad was the first Colombian athlete to come to the States on a track and field scholarship
Where'd he
in
go?
Santa Clara.
Yeah.
And so he was there when Alex Woodley was the coach at that university. And so my dad have a lot of great stories and books that my dad has taught, given me. He recruited my dad at the Pan Am Games. So my dad finished fourth in the 200 in Winnipeg. The 4x1 finished third in the 4x1. But he finished, third or fourth. But we talking John Smith, the Jamaicans. I mean, we talking that was
Oh,
back in the days when when the Pan Am teams were loaded with the guys.
right.
We talking with the legends. And now that now we get the Pan Am teams get a chance to take some of the younger guys. You know what I mean? Which is, everybody needs an opportunity because obviously we're so loaded now. But back in those days,
Right.
there wasn't as many meets or European opportunities as it is
Right.
now.
And the
So
depth has gotten so far. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And it was one of the uniqueness part. Obviously, as you mentioned, the national stadium is named after my father in Colombia, and where they had the World Youth Championship. They had the World Youth Championships in Cali, Colombia, and I was blessed to be part of the USA staff. So it was a great collaboration. Obviously, be there to make my dad proud in the sense, obviously, him representing Colombia, obviously me representing the United States, and his stadium. So that was a big,
Now,
an
I
awesome experience for
your
sure.
your dad, I know, is super proud of you and has multiple reasons to be super proud. What was that like though? Because that's a little surreal. You being on the American team, him being on the Colombian team, in your home country, in the stadium named after your dad. I mean, that had to be like a little meta special, right?
Oh no, no, absolutely, man. I mean, it was a special moment. I was obviously we've been with the USA staff with Robin and Sandy Snow and them. I got a chance to do the site visit prior to that, and so sorry about that. So so obviously when that happened, it was great because I got a chance to see my dad a couple months back to kind of see how the layout of the meet was going to be and how the federation was going to do it and all those things. So it was that was kind of the first touchy moment because he was kind of like, okay, this is surreal. I finally, you know, although I was not able to achieve the athletic goals that I wanted to achieve, to be like my father, I felt that somewhat I made it to make him proud as a coach. And I think
Right.
that was one of the things that really, really inspired me because it allowed me that opportunity to like, you know what, okay, this is something that he's going to have a lot of pride because this is our connection. I was out of the young ones, I was the one to follow his footsteps. And obviously, he was a big mentor of that. Obviously, whenever he was training me or whenever I wanted to get into coaching, he was the guy. Okay, here's how you got to do it. Here's the X's and O's. Here's periodization. Here's who's going to do it. And I understood a lot of those things, but a lot of it was foundationally found because of him.
So you
And
were obviously steeped in Colombian track.
yes.
We understand, maybe some of us, we think we understand the culture of track in America. What is the culture of track in Colombia? Is it a big deal? Is it a minor sport? What's it look
I
like
mean, I
there?
think now it's starting to grow. Obviously, with Zambrano, the bronze medalist in the 400 meters for Colombia. Obviously, he's the first Colombian athlete other than my father to really, obviously, now being an Olympic champion, and a world champion, and obviously and it was a Pan Am champion as well in the 400. So obviously that's a big step with Katarina Barguin in the triple jump, who's our, obviously Olympian triple jumper and world champion as well. Then we've had some others. Obviously, Jimena Restrepo, who's now the vice president of World Athletics, was our first Olympian, our first Olympic medalist that was coached by my college coach. Then my dad coached her. And then now coaches at Warner University, Emperatriz Gonzalez. And so, she was a 1991 NCAA champion in Nebraska. And so obviously we've had some history. We've had kids that done well internationally at the junior levels. But now with our 4x4 to finish, I believe was fourth in the World Championships and broke the national record in 2:59. They won the Pan Am Games in the 4x4. So now, there's a pool of guys right now, about 7 to 8 guys. My dad and I were counting that ran within the 45 seconds or better.
Holy
Alejandro
cow.
Zapata, who ran at Liberty University, was also from Colombia, was an All-American. So obviously, the men's side is really starting to go up, obviously. So now the funding and the things that probably my dad didn't have in the early stages of coaches or even as an athlete, now a lot of those athletes are starting to receive. So that obviously football, meaning soccer,
Yeah.
everything in Colombia. Obviously,
Right.
that's number one. But I think now with Caterina Barguin being an Olympic champion, being a world champion in our sport, kind of now brought that elevated it to another level. Like, okay, now track and field, and now with Zambrano, there was bronze medalist in the world championships, and the relay now really brought the country together to really see like, okay, now we could really do some special things as a country at the at the Olympic level. So
Is
that's
it
exciting for sure.
is it safe to assume growing up a coach's kid, and a big time coach's kid, not
Yeah.
just coach's kid, did you only participate in track and field, or
No,
is
what's funny
it
with that, Mike?
mandatory you play soccer in
No,
Colombia?
that was no. I mean, you try, but when you suck, they put you as a goalkeeper. So that's that you just get hit at. So, but no, man, I did a little bit of everything. I mean, my dad was the one thing I got to give my dad props on is he with Father's Day approaching, I think that's the one thing he's my hero. He never put a sense of like you got to be a track athlete. I would go to the stadium, as I was mentioning earlier. Obviously, my mom passed when I was 11. And from diabetes. So that was the main reason why I came to the States. But a big part of it was I was always with my dad at the track. because my mom was out there at a hospital and she was sick. So, and my oldest brother, myself, and the age difference between my oldest brother and I is 9 years. Then between my middle brother and I is 5 years. So there was already a huge age gap. So I was always with my dad. I've been to championships with him. I went to mini meets with him. My dad almost took me to a meet in Cuba one time that they were having. So it was a lot of things that I was always with my dad. So that's when, so I was mentioning earlier, when my aunt proposed the idea of me bringing me to the States, a lot of that was I can only be with him so much, and I can only travel with him so much.
Right.
But as far as that was the one thing I think my dad did a good job with. I mean, I did swimming because my middle brother played water polo. Both of my brothers are into swimming. I did judo. I did a couple classes of bullfighting for fun until on a
Hey,
Saturday.
hold on. Did you say classes for
Oh
bullfighting?
yes. Oh yeah.
How,
There's classes in South America where you learn how to be like in a bullfighting.
how
Like you
old were
learn.
you?
I was probably like 10.
Get out of here. They're not
Yes.
using like real bull like.
No. What they use like a guy with the like the long horns, and he chases you or whatever. It's funny as hell. But on Saturdays, they do take you to that one, and you get like a little baby one, like a little baby one, and you go and you practice. It's insane.
I don't know
But
what's
after
funnier.
that, I'm like, no, I'm staying at the house. I said, I'm good
Yeah, I don't know what's funnier,
at
the
the
picture
house.
of a guy running around
Yeah, that's the funny
or
part.
a 10-year-old olaying a little calf.
Oh no, it was hilarious. I mean, it was fun times, man. I remember I did that. I did judo. I did swimming. Obviously, professional dancing in Colombia is pretty big with
Mhm.
salsa dancing. So, and my dad it's a big dancer. Is known in Colombia. It's a great dancer. So obviously, I did all those things as well. So track was something that I did for, because I was with my dad at the track.
Right,
It
it was
was,
a
it was
part
something
of
that
your
was in
life,
me. That's it. It was
not
part of my,
your
going to
life. Yeah.
courses and things like that. But no, it was great times, and
So
that's kind of how it went.
walk us through when the idea of coming to the States became, and how did that actually happen? How did you actually come here and
So
start
so
that life?
obviously, when I turned 12, we went through the process, and the process wasn't easy, to be able to come to the States. And back in the 80s, my aunt came as an exchange student to Samson, Alabama. It's a small town in rural South Alabama. What we talking like is probably about 20 minutes from Enterprise, Alabama, Dothan, Alabama, with about an hour from Troy University, where I also attended. And so obviously, that family proposed to my aunt. Well, instead of, my aunt actually lives here in Miami. That was a big reason why I came to Miami, because she's my mom. I call her my mom. And so since my mom was here, my mom started doing research, and she felt like, where is the best place where you can learn the language and really get into the culture? So when the American family, the merchants, mentioned to her, which they never had kids, well, why don't you have him come stay with us? It's a small town of 2,000 people. I graduated with, I think, 59 people. I was the first Hispanic to graduate from there. So you're talking about diversity, and you're talking about, just culture shock. It was,
Culture shock.
it was that. But so that's what happened. So I came to the States. I lived with the merchants all through high school, and I lived with another family, the Simmonses. That's my best friend's family as well when I was in junior college. But so yeah, that's kind of how the steps happened. Then I went there, learned the language. Then once obviously my visa stuff ran out, my aunt started the process of adoption. So that's where the Flaquer last name came in, by her husband. So so we started the process of that. I still live in Alabama. I was going back and forth to Miami and Alabama to the immigration aspects of things. And so, yeah, I did that. And the high school that I grew up in, they didn't have track. So here's where the part of how you and I are going to link in. So what happened was, it was probably about my junior year in high school. I would play basketball. I did baseball. I did all the common. They didn't let me play football. The football coaches wanted, because I was decently fast, and But the American family that I was living with, they're like, no, you can go do band. You're not playing football because if something happens to you, we got to respond to your dad, your aunt, and we're not doing that. So I did all the other sports per se, and it was going into my junior year of high school. I was 16, 17, because when I came to the States, they put me back 2 years because of the language barrier. So I remember when I was going into, I believe, my junior year, and I was 16, 17, I was looking to buy a car. And I was going to, back in the days when you had to look in the paper, and I saw this blue Honda Civic. Oh, that'd be a great little car, and you know where this is going. So it's a baby blue Honda Civic. It was for the right price. It looked like it was going for the right price. All is well. So I call up the guy. Hey, how you doing? I'm interested in your vehicle, da-da-da-da. So where you live? I live in Troy, Alabama. Troy is about an hour and a half from my hometown. So we got to talking, and the guy is named Chris Baptista, who's now at Cal Poly. So Chris was the guy. Chris was the guy that started the process for me, because we got to talking, and he's like, dude, how come you know so much about track? I'm actually the track coach at Troy University. And I'm like, well, my dad is so-and-so. And I said, I've heard of your dad. And I'm like, why? And I said, yeah, we actually have Diana Orrego, who is from Colombia, is on our team. It's an 800-meter runner. There was a national champion in Colombia. I think she ran like 209, 210, or something like that. And she was attending Troy University at that time. And he's like, dude, we actually have practice or an inter squad or meet on a Saturday. Why don't you swing by? And, we'd love to meet you, and you can look at the car. I said, cool. So I did, and that was back when the stadium at Troy with track stadium was inside the football stadium.
Yeah.
So then they used to hold the state meets there as well. And so I never forget, I went there. I met with Chris. Showed me the car. Ended up not buying the car. I think ended up because my parents like, no, that's too expensive. We got to get you something cheaper. So ended up not getting the vehicle, but I started a great relationship with Chris. Because, man, you know a lot about track, then with your background, and obviously he knew of my dad. He said, dude, you got to start track. It's in your blood, man. You got to do it. And I'm like, man, but in my school, we don't have to. No, go to your principal. And Chris was kind of like the guy that lit that fire in me. I'm like, yes, you know what? This is something I need to do. So I went to my principal, and I said, hey, I want to start the track team. And they were like, okay, how you going to do that? And I said, well, you got to find a coach, and you got to recruit a team. So I'm okay. So I went, his name was Coach Stamps. He coached in the elementary school. So I went to him and said, hey, man, I want to start a track team. I know a little bit about track because of who my dad is and so on. And I started recruiting people, and I started recruiting a team. And the great part about it is my guardian family still own a screen printing company in Alabama. So they donated their uniforms.
Wow.
So we started that, and we made it to the state meet that year, I believe, in the 4x1. I think I made it in the 100. Then I would still keep in touch with Chris, or he would check on me by email and things like that. And that was going into my senior year, and that's when I met you. Actually, I remember I met you on the grass. And I think that was when I was running the first leg on the 4x1. I had the 100 later in that day. And that's where we met, because we were small 1A school. And I remember, Chris by that time said, hey, man, you're really coming around. You're starting to show like you got some potential. And then Coach Lambert, obviously rest in peace, came by and spoke with me. He knew of my father. And he said, hey, man, we would like for you to, see if you could potentially would like to come into Troy. Then I was going into my senior year. Unfortunately, my ACTs were not that great. My test scores were good. ACTs weren't because of the English portion. So, I ended up going back to Colombia and really deciding what I was going to do. And I went home, and I was training with my dad to come back ready. But unfortunately, I decided, what, I'm going to go back to Alabama, and I'm going to go junior college. But at that time, the only junior college that had a track program was Wallace State with Coach Naruski, but it was more distance program at that time. So I'm like, okay, I can't go there. I'm not a distance guy. And Coach Naruski to this day is a great friend of mine. And later they added the track program. And so that happened. So I was like, okay, so what am I going to do? So I went into the baseball coach at Enterprise State Community College and said, hey, I know a little bit about speed. I know a little bit about sprinting. I know the drills. I know what you got to do. Can I come and assist you with the baseball team so I can stay fit and I help you with the team?
So first of all, back up. I
Yeah.
love two important lessons there. One with like, his name's Chris Baptista. I call him Bap. The dude is my brother. He's not like my brother. He is my brother. Uh, Sometimes you make family not by blood, by
Absolutely.
relationship, right? So I love Bap. You know, he was selling a car to a kid, but he was so open to listening and was curious about you. He learned about
Hmm.
you, and then it was like, well, wait a minute, this kid has like a track background. I love that he was open to not just a transactional, do you want to buy the car or
Oh,
not?
absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
and then really fascinated, and I don't know that I knew this part, Diego, that you went to the principal and you created a track team at your school.
Yep, sure did. And as soon as I graduated, they stopped it.
Oh, dang
As
it.
soon as I graduated, they stopped it. I've called the principal. That they changed the principal. The principal I had retired, unfortunately, and I've even said, hey, I will donate whatever to keep it going. But obviously, they didn't have a track, and they had every, we were practicing around the town. We were practicing on the grass, and and obviously, it is what it is on that side of it. But
But
but no, man, that was that.
our CEO has a saying that healthy things grow. And it's if you really think about life, whether it's track or your own life, etc., that's right. If you're in a garden, the healthy things grow. If things are healthy,
Absolutely,
if they're growing. I love that you went and helped grow the sport. I'm sad that it didn't continue, but for a
absolutely.
time being, people, like, there are people right now walking around this earth that were on that team that they're sharing stories right now of that team. You know what? We had a track team for a couple years at Samson.
Yep.
This crazy Colombian guy named Diego started this team out of nothing, and we had a great time. We went to state in the four. I mean, that's huge. That's impactful, life-changing impactfulness. I love that. That's so
No,
cool.
it was great times, man. It was great times, and obviously, that it led to the next steps. I knew I've always wanted to coach. I
Yeah,
knew.
that's what I was going to ask you. Was coaching always in your brain because of dad? So is that how the enterprise, like, it seemed pretty natural for you
Yes.
to talk to the enterprise baseball coach and be like, hey man, I kind of know something about speed. Can I help the team?
No, absolutely, and I think that was one of the things for me that it was like I said, because I wanted to stay active. At that time, I was like, okay, I was working UPS, I was going to the school, and I was like, okay, I need to find something to keep myself active and be able to help and find a way to give me some scholarship money, which he ended up giving me a scholarship for being his assistant.
Nice.
And I was with him I was there 2 years. And so I did that. I was his personal assistant and traveled with the team and did all their conditioning stuff. And I actually worked with Adam Godwin, who played for the LA Dodgers for a little bit, obviously played
Oh,
Detroit,
wow.
All-American, held the NCAA record, I believe, in stolen bases. Probably the fastest white guy that I had a privilege to work with other than John Teeters,
I
to
was
be
about to
sure.
say, wait a minute now.
So he was the first one. But no, man, it was great times. And then from there, I remember I called my dad one day, and my dad said, "So what's the next steps? What are you going to do?" And I
Mhm.
said, "Well, I finished my 2 years. I got my AA, however you want to say it." Then my dad said, "Well, I got a call from a friend of mine that they did a little reunion for my dad in an area in Medellin where Jimena Restrepo was from, because my dad coached there for some time. And Imperatriz Gonzalez, who's now the coach of Warner at that time was Warner Southern. Now it's Warner University, was the coach there. She wasn't able to attend the ceremony for my dad, but she ran for my father. And my dad said, I got her number. Why don't you call her? I'm sure she could advise you some places you could go."
Mhm.
So I called Coach Gonzalez and I said, "Hey, Coach, I'm so she knew who I was, because she obviously, she, because of my dad and my brothers and stuff." So she said, "Yeah, I know who you are, man. I know what you did," and so on. And I told her my story, and she's like, "Hey, why don't you come down here to Lake Wales, Florida, where Florida Sun orange juice is? So if you go there, it's orange groves right off 27, and come and let's try to give it a shot and see if you can still run. You haven't ran in a couple of years. If not, I could always use an assistant." And I'm like, "Yes, that'd be great." And Coach Lorio's at that time, who's now, I believe, the AD at Montreat College, was
Oh,
the head
wow.
coach. And so I went there and I did I was there for about 2 years at Warner University. And it started running. My first year started running and started having some stretch fractures, started having some issues that just my body was just not allowing me to do as well as I wanted to. And, and I was just a small NAIA school. And we made it to nationals. We had some good teams. We had a national champion in the 400 hurdles, 2-time national champion, a guy in the 200. So Coach Gonzalez really took me under her wing and said, I'm going to teach you how to now be a coach. I'm going to teach you how to do these things. Obviously, she coached Jimena Restrepo. I had a lot of respect for her. And so that happened. So I was there. I was mentor under her. And Coach Larios pulled me aside one day and said, hey, I know you about to finish school here, or you know you still got a little bit of school left, but I got this place for you by a guy named Scott Simmons, who's the American Distance Projects coach over in Colorado Springs. He's got a program. They're a pretty good distance team. They now starting to put a little bit of emphasis on the track program at Virginia Intermont College. You can go there. He'll tell me he'll pay for the rest of your school. You could keep, you know, and to finish your undergrad, but he's looking for a sprint coach. He's got, you know, a couple African-American guys that just want someone to coach him. And I said, okay, cool. So I went, and I remember I was scared to death. I called my dad, said, Dad, I think I got this opportunity. And my dad said, hey, if you want to learn how to swim, you got to jump in the pool.
That's it. I love that.
You know the principles, you know the things. So I think it's time for you to go. So
how many people have not achieved success because of just straight fear of the fear of failure? Like it's one thing to go and fail, and you can learn from that. But if you never take that leap into the pool, as you put it, you'll never know if you can swim or not. I love that.
Absolutely. And that's what happened. So I went to Virginia Intermont, and I was living in the, you know, in the housing dorm, and they were paying, you know, obviously they were paying for my school and for the rest of my school and my meals. I think I was getting like $200 a month. I thought I was rich. I was working at Red Lobster in the evenings, and but it was great, and it was a great group of kids that, you know, Patrick Small, Travis Bowman. I mean, we made it to nationals that year. Desmond Brown, who actually holds the 400-meter hurdle record at Troy University, because he came with me to Troy. Once later, they cut the program at Virginia Intermont.
Yeah.
And that program at Virginia Intermont, you know, we won. We were a couple times runner-up to Azusa Pacific. And you know, indoor, outdoor. They won a ton of cross country national titles. Actually, Elkanah Kazgay actually, once they cut the program, went to LSU, and it was an NCAA runner up for LSU in the 800 meters for Coach Elliott at that time. And so I had a chance to be surrounded by this great cross country program, this great program, and this kid just really was like, man, Coach, what you say we doing. And, you know, and I was just the guy that, you know, loved the sport, that wanted to be better than my father was now in this other phase, in the coaching aspect phase of it. And so that's what happened. So that, you know, I was there, and we had I was there 2 years and graduated, finished that. Then unfortunately the last year, they cut the program for funding and things like that. And
what were you getting your undergrad in?
Education, phys ed.
Because you knew coaching was going to be it. So
I knew that's what I wanted to do. So then, obviously, at that time I had a guy, Travis Bowman. He ran 46 seconds in the 400. His brother was a football player at Bowman, last name at Penn State, who later I think played for the 49ers. Can't remember, but anyway. So that happened. That situation happened. Then I got connected with Coach Bill Carson over in South Carolina and over in East Carolina. A great influence in my life at that time. Obviously, I would go to the meets at Virginia Tech, so I had a pretty good group of guys. And he's like, who's this guy? Who's this young Hispanic guy coaching these kids? And so we got to talking, and he mentored me a lot. And I remember I spent the weekend with him as soon as I graduated Virginia Intermont, and I knew the program was being cut. Packed up, I had a Jeep, and I packed up my Jeep, and I rode over to East Carolina, and I spent like almost a week with Coach Carson. He was trying to do everything he could to create a GA position for me at that time, because at that time it was a split program. He was over the men, and Coach Crabb was over the women. And so, unfortunately, he wasn't able to work things out. But the one thing that I've learned, and I think this is the one thing that kind of puts who I am as a person, I never forget, every time that I drove to Alabama, you know, from Virginia to go visit my guardian family, I always made a point to stop at two places, Auburn University and Troy University. Obviously, those were the two schools that I grew up, you know, going to the football games, or I was in band, going to the Sound of the South at Troy University. Yeah. And, then, Auburn was my dream school per se.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn was the place that I wanted to run. And every time that I come to meets, or we were at meets, I would always go and introduce myself to Coach Pride, to Coach Rosen, to Coach Clayton, to Coach Roll. And I'll be like, hey, Coach, I want to be your guy one day. I want to be your GA. I want to be whatever you need me to be, maybe go to my grad school there. And Coach Pride was like, yeah, Diego, he always was cordial to me, very friendly to me. And Coach Rosen is, he's like a father to me. So obviously he was always there. And but that was my stops. And I would stop at Troy. Coach Lambert knew me because of the recruiting process. Would stop and say hi to him. At that time, I believe Coach Lancaster was there. And so I would always stop by, say hi. So I remember reaching out to Coach Lambert, and Coach Lancaster said, hey, school program quit, stopped. I have a couple young guys that would like to transfer with me. They were pretty talented guys that would compete at the Sun Belt right away. And then I remember I talked to Coach Lambert a couple times. Coach Lambert said, hey, I think I could get you in a GA position here. And then I came in. He said, but you got to come and meet with Coach Lancaster, because once I retire, I'm going to pass the program over to her. So at the end of the day, Coach Lancaster is going to make the final decision. Perfect. So on one of my drives down, I came and spent the weekend with Coach Lancaster in her house and went fishing and so on. And so we kind of hit it off. And so she called me one day and said, hey, I think I can get you into the program. Obviously, you got to go into grad school. So I went and did my grad school at Troy. So then that's kind of how that aspect of it went. So I was there for a year. And I never forget, I was keeping in touch with Coach Pride, passing my resume and doing all those things. And I said yes to Troy University. Desmond Brown was transferring with me. Some of the other guys some went to Warner University, some went to other schools. And I got into the grad program at Troy. And like a week or 2 weeks later, Coach Pride calls me and says, hey, Diego, I got a GA position. Would you be interested? So now I'm in this battle of, here's my dream school, being a GA to work in the SEC under Coach Pride and Coach Rosen, or do I stay at Troy? So I was in the very dilemma. And I remember I talked to Coach Pride, and Coach Pride said, Diego, man, you got one of your athletes come in. So Troy's a great program. It's going to allow you the opportunity to learn how to recruit at Division I level to coach. I think that'd be a great step for you. Although I would love to have you here. So I'm like, okay, Coach. So that was easier for me to swallow per se. So
what a great example of selflessness. I mean, Coach Spry, who is just an amazing dude, he easily could have said, hey, it could have been selfish and like, hey, Diego, I understand, but it's Troy. Come on, you need to get over here because he needs you to help him. But instead, he thought about what was in your best interest, even at to his detriment. That's such a great story of selflessness.
No, and so that's how it happened. So I went to Troy for a year and a half, I believe it was, because I started in the summer. And so then we had some success. I think finished third in the men in the conference that year. Obviously, that was when Tawana Meadows was there, or Darian Bassett. Obviously, Desmond made it to nationals in the 400 hurdles. I mean, we had a really good group of men. We had a great group of girls as well at that time, and it was a lot of fun. Then the summer came. Then no, not the summer. We were going into the outdoor season, and we had a weekend off. And my very best friend, Keith Hurston, who's at Florida State now, called me up and said, hey, man, we kept in touch. We met at the Troy meet when he brought some of the Troy kids, because he replaced me. He took the GA position. So I never forget, he called me one day and said, hey, man, I think I'm going to step into another role in the GA because I'm going to go into my grad program here at Troy, but that GA position that you want is now coming back open again. And I'm like, oh, okay. So then I never forget, I touched base with Coach Pride again, and I say, hey, Coach, I understand that the GA position is coming back open, and had a great role here. I think it was great, but I really would like to get my foot in the door in the SEC. And he said, all right, you ready to be an Auburn Tiger? That's how Coach Pride comes at you. So if you're ready to be an Auburn Tiger, let's do this, man. And so, and I did. I was that, and I went to Auburn. I went to Auburn. And so, and it was great. I was mentored under some amazing people, and him, Coach Clay and Coach Rosen, Scott Richardson, who you had on the podcast as well. obviously Henry Rowe. So, and it was great. It was a great year there of learning. I mean, we're having a lot of success there on the men's program. I was Coach Price's right-hand person and everyone's right-hand person as a GA position, doing
That's
whatever
right.
you asked me to. But I remember the year before how the process started was when Keith called me about the position, they were hosting SEC championships. And Keith said, hey, why don't you come up for the weekend, help us out so they see kind of what kind of person you are, how you work. And I never forget, I went and stayed in Keith's couch and we worked our butts off for like 4 days for SEC championship. And that's kind of where I earned their stripes. I'm like, okay, this guy will hustle. This guy's won't sit. And so it was great. It was a great experience. So that was my first introduction into the Auburn family per se.
Mm-hmm.
Then I was at Auburn for, I think a year. And Coach Rod Tiffin at Samford University had a position up. He just took the job at Samford at that time, after Alabama. And Coach Rosen pulled me aside and said, Diego, it's great to have you at GA, son, but it's time for you to go grow somewhere else because, you need to go step somewhere. And obviously it was a hard decision because I loved Auburn. Auburn was my dream school. I didn't want to leave Auburn. But surely Sally Mae wanted her money back. I needed to start making some money. So, I can work UPS and Red Lobster all the time. So that happened.
I love these mentors in your life. Obviously your dad being the earliest and biggest mentor in your life, but from the ECU coach, Scott Simmons, Pettitrice, even Bob and Jill there at Troy, Ralph and Rosen. I mean, you're it's almost as if you believe in destiny, it's almost as if destiny was set up for you to become a track coach. I mean,
absolutely, man.
Even so much so that, obviously you have the genetics from your father to be at least a halfway decent track out, to reach your father's successes, unicorn land, but you could have been really good. But even so much that you were getting these injuries, it really feels like God was like, yeah, that's not my plan for you. My plan is for you to impact way many more people by becoming a coach.
No, absolutely, man. And I think that was the uniqueness part of it, because then when I went to Samford, went there, helped Coach Stiffen have a position, and I never forget now because I made a couple stops year by year. So I got the Samford, and I'm there, and I never forget I was at a national meet with Coach Stiffen. We had a pole vaulter. Coach Tiffin took me with him. And I'll never forget Coach Proud pulled me aside and said, hey, Diego, I actually have a full-time position coming open. I want to bring you back. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, God, now I got to tell Coach Stiffen I'm leaving. And, that was a hard decision because, Coach Stiffen gave me this great opportunity. And I remember I went to Coach Rosen because I still kept a very close relationship with Coach Rosen. And Coach Rosen said, hey, here's where the SEC is where you want to be. Here's where you're going to grow. Now you're really going to be able to really blossom as a coach. And under myself, and the rest of our staff. And so I went to Auburn. I went back to Auburn.
Went back.
And I was at Auburn 4 years then. So I stayed 4 years there. And it was great times, learned a lot, was mentored a lot. And I think that the uniqueness part of my story, I would say, and I tell people when they ask, well, you weren't able to be the great athlete, 45-second guy like my father was, and all those things, or an Olympian semifinalist, Pan Am champion, all those things. I think the one thing for me was that what I wasn't able to achieve as an athlete, I was blessed to achieve in my dream schools as a coach, which it was God's way of saying, well, like you just mentioned, maybe it wasn't your time to do it as an athlete, but I'm going to bless you with the opportunity to impact the relationships with the Marcus Rowlands, the Harry Adams, the Keenan Brocks, the Michael D. Havens, the, Isaiah, Ruben McCoy, Ty Atkins. I was at Auburn with, Karan Stewart was there. Lee Van Sands was there. And Coach Roll also took me under his wings and allowed me to learn how to coach women. And Coach Pratt took me under his wing. Let me teach you how to be a great long jump coach, because obviously I would, he was a 28-footer, first national champion at Ole Miss, and I'm gonna, and my system as a sprint coach with the men, so so it was a great situation. Obviously, my roommate was Mel Rosen, so I've heard a ton of great stories. Every time that I travel, I was with Mel, and so Mel impacted my life, as a father, and so those things happen, man.
That's
And
an education you can't pay
oh
for.
no,
You can't
absolutely.
read in a book. You can't
No,
go to a
absolutely.
clinic
You
for
know,
that kind of education.
no, you're absolutely correct, man. And then I did my time there. And I was at Auburn. Then I was reached out by Oklahoma State. Dave Smith said, hey, obviously they're the powerhouse of distance program. They were building a brand new track. And, hey, I'm looking for a sprint coach. So I'm like, okay. So talked to Coach Anderson, Vince Anderson, referred me to it as well. Coach Mike Holloway and other people that also impacted my life and mentored me. And so it was kind of one of those things that, I said, well, it's time for me to kind of go create my own brand, my own name somewhere else. Takes the things that I've learned at Auburn, which was now leaving that comfort zone per se.
Yeah, I was going to ask because obviously Auburn holds a special place in your heart from growing up through high school and the opportunities they gave you. And again, the great Mel Rosen. That had to be hard leaving that. You weren't forced to leave. You made the decision to leave. So was it, you mentioned building your own reputation, so to speak. Was it because you would have complete autonomy over your group at Oklahoma State? Because I know you were given a lot of responsibilities, but you were still beholden to Ralph and beholden to Henry. And
absolutely. And so this was the opportunity when I sit down and chatted with Coach Roll and with Coach Spry. Obviously, they gave me their pros and cons on the situation, even with Coach Clayton. But they both felt, hey, this is a great opportunity for you to go make a name for yourself. You know the things that we taught you. You know the things now that you did here, the impact that you had with the athletes. Surely you were running our program, but at the end of the day, you still had, you were in the warm-up area with them. You were the one running the practices where we could be here. So you know the things that to be successful. And so I looked into Oklahoma. It's a whole other world. So I'm like, okay. And Stillwater, Oklahoma, it's a small college town as well. And so I went and interviewed with Coach Dave Smith, who gave me a great opportunity and learned a lot under him as well. And went there and, okay, so let's run with it. You know what I mean?
What were the differences? You're in still two very high-powered conferences, right? The SEC and the Big 12. I have SEC. They talk about SEC bias. I am SEC biased.
Same here.
I think it's but the Big 12 is not anything to laugh at by any means. It's a heck of a conference. What were, besides you controlling your, the having autonomy over your own group, what were some of the differences in regards to, anything? Was there recruiting differences? Was there competition?
No, I mean, I think the challenges was, obviously when I walked into Oklahoma State, it was a distance program first. Obviously they just won the national title. If not, was second or third the year before. They had their own cross-country course. Now Oklahoma State, the one things they do is they got probably some of the best facilities in the country. So obviously that was something that was exciting to go somewhere with something new. Obviously when I got there, the track and field history was very, was in the past. It was in I had the privilege to have a 4x1 at the national meet, and that was the first time they had a relay at the national meet since 1982 on the men's side.
Wow.
So obviously, and they've had some amazing athletes, come through there. Obviously in the pole vault, which Coach Vigil, Dion.
Yeah.
And he's an amazing guy, and he helped me a lot. He was the guy that, Coach Dow was the one guy that I called because I started trying to reach out to alumni. Okay, we started to build a sprint program, and Coach Dow got me in contact with the great ones, the guys there. A lot of them lived in Dallas, some of them lived in Houston, and every time that I started my little, I call it my vacuum cleaner salesman mode, when I was just going into every high school in Texas, Oklahoma, and trying to build the program. Probably got told no more than anything because obviously we were a distance school. And so, and it was a great experience. It challenged me a lot in a lot of positive ways. And Stillwater was a great little town for me because it was very low key. Everything surrounded the football program and athletics in general. So get there.
You had some interesting kids there. You had the runner-up in the 60.
Yep.
In Teeters. Maybe was also runner-up in the 100 as well.
He was fourth in 100.
Fourth in 100. And also one of the athletes that I think if they would have stuck to track would have been an Olympic, if not an Olympic gold medalist, Tyreek Hill.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So that's what happened. So when I got there, I've heard of John Teeters. John Teeters wanted to come and transfer to Oklahoma State, an Oklahoma guy, Edmond Memorial, I believe, high school. And so I came and saw him. He looked like this big guy,
He's huge.
He looked like
He's a fullback.
He just got off the surfing, the surfing board. He had the long hair going, and I'm like, oh boy, who's this guy? I knew he ran 10:27 windy and 21:2 windy, but I'm okay. That's pretty fast for a white guy. So I'm okay, cool. And at that time, I think I had probably like 7 or 8 sprinters, guys and girls all together. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Well, man, come on with it. Let's try to make this happen, and let me let you be the face of this program. When you leave here, you're going to be a guy that's going to be remembered, and so on. So he bought into me, into the process. And year 2 was when it really took off. But year 1, I went to football. Okay, where can I go get football players? Obviously, I got Ken Harden is a great friend of mine, great person that's always had my back. And I remember he knew me from my very, very beginnings when I was in NAIA, when I would see him and he had Walter Dix and all those guys. And I remember touch base with him. He was always cordial to me. And he said, hey, man, now you got to go to the football team. You know how much sprinters, now got to go to the football team, see how you can help the football team. So I went to Coach Gundy and introduced myself. And Coach Glass, who was a track guy, he was the strength and conditioning coach at Florida when John Capel was at Florida.
Oh.
Now, he's been at Oklahoma State all this time now, but he was the strength and conditioning. So he was the one that said, no, let me go introduce you to Coach Gundy. Let me go introduce you to a wide receivers coach. And so I did that. And the conversation became, could you help us recruit Tyreek Hill? There's a guy at Garden City Community College that we know him more as a track guy who also can play football. Could you help us? And I said, hey, man, I'll get on my car and drive all the way to Garden City Community College.
That's a beautiful drive.
Oh, it's a beautiful drive. Very, very beautiful, and it smells amazing. So then you go all the way through, get all the way there. And so I started building that rapport with Tyreek. And that report happened. And came to find out, when he came on an official visit, things worked out and he chose Oklahoma State. So I'm like, awesome. I'm like, okay, perfect. He came mid-year. So he came right perfectly for track for us. Right. So obviously it worked out, ideally for us. So he was able to come in right away and be a major impact when we won the conference. I believe it was 2014 on the men's side. That was the first time the men's won a conference in quite a while.
I was about to say, when you look at the Big 12 history, there's like 4 schools that have won every conference title. Yes. Oklahoma State and winning that one was a rare, special treat. Yes. And same thing with Baylor, won the women's indoor, I think it was a few years ago.
Yes.
That's rare air outside of those kind of 4.
Especially now, now Texas Tech is, with Coach Keeley's doing a great job there, absolutely. So, but no, man, so that happened. And at that time, so now I had Tyreek Hill and John Teeters. Obviously, Tyreek Hill came in right away and, won. I think he was second in the conference in the 60, won the conference in the 200. I mean, he beat Trayvon Bromell. I mean, he beat some of the elite guys in the nation, obviously, right away. And a lot of people just see what he did in high school. That's kind of the biggest thing. A lot of people say he ran 2014 and whatever in high school, but he had such a short stint and as a collegiate career. I mean, he did all that. And he was finished 4th or 5th, I believe, in the 200, ran 20:56 indoor in Albuquerque on the outside lane in those very small lanes. First time ever running on a bank track.
Wow.
And so that happened. So obviously that really set up the momentum for the program to really get going. And then John took off outdoors.
What were the struggles with Oklahoma State, and they were, and I think they still are doing a really good job football-wise, although they did lose in Troy University to Troy.
Yes, I was there. I was there when that was the 40. That was down 40. That was right after it happened.
Yeah, I was I was here in Champaign. I was at a Buffalo Wild Wings. It was the same night as the Cubs-Cards baseball game, which is a huge deal here in Illinois, especially in the middle of Illinois, because north is Cubs and south is Cards.
Oh, yeah.
So every TV was on the Cubs-Card baseball game, except for this one small TV in front of my table. I asked them to switch it to the Troy Oklahoma State game, and so I think that might have been, was that Leotis McKelvin? Was he still there? We were
Yeah.
running. We had a couple
Yes.
punts returned for a touchdown, and I'm in the middle of the restaurant pumping my arms, screaming, and people are looking at the baseball game like, "What's going on? The guy just pitched a pitch. Big deal. What's this guy so excited for?" Yeah.
That's awesome, man. But no, it was.
Well, what I was going to ask you is what struggles or challenges did you have coaching? I mean, he was a football player first at Oklahoma State, track athlete second. Were there time constraints? Were there strength and conditioning constraints?
Obviously he had obviously because he just got there. I mean, he had the the weight conditioning thing. Obviously, the thing that helped is Coach Glass understood track, so he knew, okay,
that's huge.
Tariq, maybe he can't, if he squatted that day, maybe he can't do this in the afternoon or vice versa. So we communicated often, and he allowed a lot of the football guys to come out. So that really helped kind of give us a little bit more depth. We had Gerald Morrow, who was a 25-foot long jumper for us as there. Trey Flowers, who's a safety for Seattle Seahawks, was also a long jumper, 24-foot long jumper for us. So it was, it was awesome. We were able to get some depth out of it, and so it was positive. But at the same token, we knew, even with Tariq might have practiced only 2 to 3 times a week, just because the restraints with football times and practices and so on. So
well, I'm sure that communication that you gave them made them feel better. It's like, okay, he's Diego's actually working with us, not just give me the athletes, stay over there football.
Oh no, absolutely.
I know you said maybe 2 to 3 times a week for practice. Were there any important meets like conference, things like that he had to skip because of football commitments, or was that all okay?
No, that was all okay. I mean, I think Tariq might have we ran, I believe, maybe 1 or 2 indoor meets that year. I know he ran at Arkansas. We ran at Arkansas that year when they had, obviously they still have the Tyson, the 3 rounds of the 60, and him and John both made the finals in the 60, which that was like huge for us because we were, Oklahoma State was not known for sprinting. We were just happy to be there, if you want to call it that way. But it kind of started giving us that momentum that, okay, Oklahoma State can actually have some sprinters again, and we can get back some of that history that they had back in the in the 80s and early 90s. So that was an exciting time for sure, and for him to go and be an All-American right away, that was awesome. I think obviously then John took off outdoors. That's when John ran 10-14 outdoors, made it to nationals in 100. Ran 10-14 multiple times in 100. So that kind of set the momentum for John, because outdoors, it would have been, our 4x1 would have been a whole nother animal that year, because Tariq unfortunately rolled his ankle during spring ball.
In football, he did it.
In football.
Oh, thank goodness, right? Because if you would have gotten him hurt.
Amen to that. So we were – a funny story about Tariq is not many people know is obviously we were at indoor nationals, and 2 or 3 days before they were having, light impact football practice and so on. So he got hit on his quad. And I didn't learn this till obviously I get to the national meet. And so Tariq's telling me, so coach, my quad is not feeling right. This is probably about an hour and a half before we run. So I went to Coach Glass, from Atlanta, one of the USA trainers. He was there with Ole Miss, I believe, at that time. I knew him through my Auburn days because he would travel with us, or we utilized him when I was at Auburn. And I went, hey, Dr. Glass, could you please check out Tariq? And he said, Diego, I think, his quad is having some spasms because he got hit. So I look at Tariq and I say, man, what do you think? Are we going to do this or not? And he said, no, coach, we didn't come all the way to New Mexico to watch it. We're running. And I'm like, all right, let's do this. But in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, God, please let this guy get out of here in one piece, because I can't take him back to Coach Gundy hurt.
2 things, right? You can't take him back to Coach Gundy hurt. And you were talking about this guy's he's going to the NFL one way or the other. You don't know what success he's going to have. We know now what success he's had, but it's like, dude, this guy's going to get drafted. I cannot get him hurt.
No, absolutely. So that happened. So and we've been training for about a month and a half. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, all right, so let's figure out how we're going to do this. And first round goes, he ran 20.67. I think he was second in his section, so he made the final. He said, man, I'm really feeling it. So we just chilled. And that was the time when the 200 was his insane night. But the 200 final was the same night. It wasn't like it is now that they split them.
Right.
So, we chill. We lifted our legs. Did what we got to do, moved around a little bit. And then later that day, he finished second. And as a team, we finished sixth that indoor. Because Nick Miller, I believe, was runner-up, if not an All-American in the hammer indoor. And so, obviously, and in the distance team did fairly well. So I think we finished sixth as a team that year, and we won the conference. So we had in general, we had a great year.
Yeah.
We had a great year. Then the following year came, and that's when John took off. That's when John was, 652 in the 60, was an NCAA runner-up. Obviously ran 10:07 that year in the 100. Obviously his senior year was when finished third in the 60, I believe that year, third or fourth in the 60 that year, was fourth in the 100. But that in the Olympic trials was when he ran the fastest time ever by a white American, by non-African descent. Which obviously now he's the fastest, Caucasian per se, in the 60 and the 100 in U.S. history, 10 flat and 652. And so he had a couple of years post-collegiate. He signed with Under Armour. I coached him the last year. Got back to running 655. I believe he won Milrose, went into USA's. We're trying to do a long distance, which, as you know, that's very difficult, trying to do it that way. Then he decided that he wanted to go back to school and stop running. So now he's just focusing on school and work as of right now. I still keep touch base with Tyreek. Actually, Tyreek called me right before quarantine. He was actually in Miami. He comes to spend a couple of times in Miami, and we linked up once or twice since he's been here. And we talked a little bit about trying to go the track route, trying to see, can I try to see if I can maybe have a go at this thing. And he said, because I know we have some small meets here in Miami, maybe I could come and compete maybe in the 200, do something just to kind of see where my fitness is and things like that. So we chatted on a little bit, but obviously then quarantine happened, and now obviously he's getting ready for the combine. I mean, not for combine, but for football season in general. So,
yeah,
but no, man, that's a little bit of that.
It's tough for guys like that, and I got a chance to work with another NFLer back in his high school days, Ginn Jr. I don't know if you remember Ted Ginn, and he was the guy that when we had him at the Olympic Training Center, I told all of our big bosses there from USATF, I was like, you got to watch this kid. He'll break the world record in the hurdles. I mean, it was unbelievable. And it's hard to say, man, if only Tyreek would have just stuck with track, or only if Ted would have stuck with track. And it's like, their minimum contracts at NFL are light years ahead of where we are at our maximum sometimes here at track and field. So it's so hard to try to say, if you'd only stick with track. Our passion was track, so we'd love to see them and what they ultimately could have been. And they would have been the multi-time Olympians and record holders and stuff.
Oh, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I'm biased on the perspective. I mean, obviously, because I know Tyreek personally. Unfortunately, he had the situations that happened for him that some were out of his control, and some was, situation that went. I was with him along the way, because at the end of the day, as a coach, you got to stick by your people. You got to stick with the people that give you a chance, because he didn't have to come. He didn't even have to run track. He could have just really focused on football. But I felt our relationship really helped, even when he was going through the process, even after he transferred to West Alabama. We kept base. Obviously, when the NFL process was going on, I probably gotten 20 or so calls from NFL teams, say, hey, we understand that you guys had a relationship, doing their background checks.
Is that right? They even called the little old track coach.
Yep, they called the track coach. Yes, you did. I mean, obviously, to this day, I still keep touch with when he comes, because obviously at UM we have that, such a rich history with football, and all the recruiters come by. The one from the Kansas City Chiefs actually always comes by and stops by my office and says hi to me, because he was the one. He and I communicated several times, just asking in general the story of what happened at Oklahoma State, or in general about how Tyreek was as a person.
Right.
And I never forget it. And I share his story because obviously there's so much sometimes negativity about him because of things that happen and so on, even in his NFL time. Never forget, we were in New Mexico. He just got competing after NCAAs. We were flying the next morning, I believe, going back to Stillwater. and it was him and Chad Noel, you know, and then All-American miler and 1,500 meter, NCAA champion in the 1,500, I believe, while at Oklahoma State. And I never forget, it was probably like 1 a.m. I get a knock on my door. You know, we got back in late, you know, from the meet in general. So Tariq went and got flushed and stuff, and he comes knock on my door like around 1. Boom, boom, boom. I'm like, what the heck is knocking on my door? I walk out. I'm like, hey, Coach, this is Tariq. I just want to let you know I'm going to go out with Chad for just a moment, but I'll call you when I get back. And he got back around 2. It came back, knocked on my door, said, Coach, I just want to let you know I'm back. You know what I mean? And he didn't have to do that.
Right.
He could have just went like all the other kids do at times and go and do their things, and nobody would have ever known,
Right.
you know, per se. But that really showed that the level of respect he had for me, the level of respect he had for the program, because we're like, dude, you're good, bad, or indifferent. You're the face of Oklahoma State football next year, which he was. He's what got us, you know, the reason we beat Oklahoma that year, Oklahoma State beat Oklahoma that year, one of the few times they beat Oklahoma was when Tariq returned a punt return. And they went into an overtime, and Oklahoma State won, I believe, on a field goal. But, you know, so it was, you know, it's some of the, just a little piece of who he was as a person and his character.
That relationship you guys, I mean, it's an obvious indicator of the relationship you guys had.
No, absolutely. So, and I think that's the biggest thing in general about where I stand, my beliefs as a person. I believe that if I'm not instilling some godly wisdom to a person, if I'm not instilling a sense of respect, a sense of love and brotherhood, then I'm not helping a young man or a young girl become a better version of themselves. They're just running and moving and leaving it at that. And that's just not my biggest. I want to impact their lives in that way as well.
Where does that come from? When you look at the style of your dad and how he coached, is that kind of his style, or has it been born through all these great mentors you've had?
I think a lot of it for me has been, obviously I didn't get a chance to see, I have very few memories of my dad running. Obviously I have very few memories of my dad coaching. But I think the one thing my dad always says is, you know, treat people as you want to be treated. Obviously, even in a very, you know, poor country as Colombia, you know, my dad still walks everywhere and goes everywhere. And, you know, and people that recognize him, or even the beggar down the street, my dad will give him little chain in his pocket or whatever it needs to be. And I remember my dad helping the athletes the best way he could when they didn't have money for a bus so they could come back and train, or having them over at the house so they could have a meal. So I think some of those things were things that were instilled in me, as well as the relationships and the mentorships that I've gotten during my stops at Auburn with Rod Tiffin, with Dave Smith in general. So I think, you know, with Coach Lancaster, even at Troy. So I think those are some of the things that kind of instilled that style, because I want to coach the athlete, not the event. I think I really want to feel that and I think that was the biggest thing that with John, I believe that what allowed John to have the success that he did was he knew I had his back. He knew that no matter what, I was going to have his back, that I was going to support him. And you know, one of the coolest things that I received, and it happened about a couple months ago, John calls me and says, hey, Coach, I just got a job at I think it's called Bob Anderson's. I think it's a major furniture company in the Midwest, actually in Oklahoma. I just got a job there. And obviously he's still working on his undergrad. And I said, okay, that's awesome, John. And then I said, oh, that's I'm really proud of you. And then he said, and I just want to thank you because I got my job because of the stories that I was telling them about how you treated me and how you expected certain things out of me in practice and in competition.
Wow.
And they hired me because of that. And that was probably the one thing that really stood out to me. And I'm like, man, you know, that's what this whole thing is about. You know what I mean? And even like when I've had conversations with Marcus Rowland, who now works in Dallas, in the medical field, and I've had, you know, people put you as references, or Harry Adams, who now is also in the coaching, Michael DeHaven, who's now one of our assistant coaches now at Auburn. I mean, here in Miami, who ran at Auburn. It's, you know, and obviously that's the impactful thing that you get to have in this process. You know what I mean? That you get a chance to impact lives and to see kids that you know you saw something in them and they believed in you, and now they took that ability and took it to a whole nother level. And so, yeah, so that's the one thing in my approach on how I like to do things, and really put some relationship and some godly wisdom in it.
Well, I love the aspect of the impact. You know, we believe the positive impact of a coach is insurmountable. It's infinity. You know, the impact
Absolutely.
that specifically a college coach in this example has with 18 to 22-year-olds in this country.
Absolutely.
So I love your kind of mantra there of coaching the athlete, not the event. It really makes me think about when I call someone a sprint coach or a jumps
Yeah,
coach. I'm like,
absolutely.
oh, no, sprint coach. You are a coach of people who run
Absolutely.
sprints. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's really that's impactful. That kind of mind shift of who and how you coach and the impact you have.
No, absolutely. And I think that's been the funnest part of this journey. Obviously, now that, quarantine has happened, and it kind of allow you to reflect on some things, check on people that you haven't seen, athletes that I've had at Virginia Intermont or Troy. And obviously, those are things that now you go back and you really realize, man, the impact that you've had in some people, the impact that you hope you had in them, because they know they're always going to impact us in some form, way, or fashion. But at the end of the day, I think for me is about, did I hopefully you learn some things during the process, about how to be a better man, how to be a better woman, and in the same token, really applying a little bit of, godly wisdom. I think the one thing that I give my guys here in Miami since I've been here, I've always started with, it's called faith, patience, and focus. And I think in where we are now, which, patience activates faith. So I think I may have to flip it, but I think that the faith aspect of it is understanding that, that no matter what's happening, no matter what's going on, God is by our side, and we're going to be okay. Obviously, yeah, these times of unknown are scary and weird for all of us. But in the same token, I think that we have to remain faithful to who we are as individuals, and have faith that God is going to see us through, and be patient through that process, which is the hardest part. Sprint coaches, we want things now. We want to get it done now. And the clips vice versa. But we have to remain patient and understanding that, that's going to come in his time. Then as that comes, our focus has to be on what's the objective. Is it to be the best conference level person, to be the best, national level person, to be the best husband, the best boyfriend, the best father, the best girlfriend, the best mother. And I think that's some of the things that since I've been at and Coach Dean has allowed me to do, and we give it to all of our athletes, is then I'll send you one as well, is the faith, patience, focus mindset or mantra or bracelet per se, to allow them to remember that in life we have to remain faithful to the hard time. We got to be patient to the hard times and stay focused on who we are as individuals, because it's very easy to lose ourselves as well.
Easily, yeah, and that's so sad, but you're right. It is easy, and we have to that perseverance, and it really, you hit the nail on the head when you said the patience is so hard. It really is. And what's interesting is we look back 5 and 10 and 20 years from now, when we look back at the 2020 season, well, we're not going to remember a lot of the negatives. We're going to realize and remember that the season was taken from us, but we're going to remember what happened the very next year in 21, what happened in 25, what happened in 30. We're going to have so much more great things happening for us here in the future. Let's not let today's present stop us from taking those leaps of faith into what's going to happen in the future.
Absolutely.
Now
Absolutely.
we have a huge positive. We have a huge belief that we're going to have a 2021 season. How pumped are you and the Miami staff for next year?
Oh no, we are excited, man, because we, the good thing out of this and the blessing that came out of it is we're able to give some of those seniors their year back.
Good, yeah.
Raheem Chambers, who was having a heck of a season indoor. Obviously, he ran 10:09 the year before, so now we're really excited for him. For McKinley Brown in the 400 hurdles, that just missed making nationals in the 400 hurdles. Our 4x4 that ran 3:06 that broke the school record. So now, and we brought in a great group of young men to add more depth to that. Obviously, on the women's side, we bring all the ladies back. that just finished second in the conference. Frida Steele's coming back, and she's healthy. Tiara McMahon was a contender in the hurdles. Michelle Adderley, the NCAA champion in the heptathlon, now comes back for outdoor. So, we're excited because now, along with the young people coming in, we adding that depth, the Debbie Jack being the throws. Coach Young is doing an amazing job with the throws, with the women's throws, and Coach Jarvis in the jumps. And our young two group on the men's side is young, but now you're considered a redshirt freshman per se, but now this is an opportunity for this team to really take a step in the right direction. So we're excited in all aspects. We know there's going to be some challenges in some things, but I think the privilege that we have is we live in a great city, great weather. So we'll be able to, when it comes to the outdoor season, adjust to the new challenges that are going to come with that. Indoor, obviously, compete where we need to compete to give these kids the best chance to be ready to succeed at Clemson, where that's where our conference meet would be. Then I believe Nationals is at Arkansas. So this coming year. So yeah, we're excited about that one. I mean, I've had a lot of success at Arkansas, so
Yeah.
I love Arkansas. So
yeah, big year. Arkansas, obviously, one of the top indoor facilities, and
yes.
had a lot of success there. And you're going to end the collegiate season at the brand new Hayward Field, which
Absolutely.
I know you've seen pictures. We're finishing out all the equipment right now, and I'll tell you what, the pictures are amazing, and they don't do it justice.
And I think the one thing that you guys do is, and I think obviously, is the attention to detail. The attention to detail, the attention to the graphics, the attention to the hurdles, the attention to the steeplechase barriers. I think that was one of the things that, the pole vault standards, all those things. I think the one thing that I appreciated for you, man, is that I don't know if you remember, you did you helped me create something for my father to honor my father as a hurdle board. And he put it in his little trophy room. And I never forget it when he received it and he wasn't even a hurdler. He was a 400 guy, but it was really something that he was very, very proud of. And I thank you for that, because you guys didn't have to do it. And I appreciate you doing it, because it really impacted his contributions to the sport. Huge. I think, obviously when he saw it, he was like, man, he started crying, calls me, he puts it up. And even when I go to Colombia, he always shows, when I go home, obviously he has a little trophy room. Then he shows me his, here's my hurdle board with his name on it, and with the Colombian colors and stuff like that. But I'm really thankful for that. I mean, that was very special to us for sure.
Well, our whole thing is empowering coaches with innovative equipment, and really at the heart of that is serving. And honestly, Miami, you and Amy and the staff there, and you have a wonderful staff. I love your whole staff, to be honest with you, Corey, Rob, everybody's just fantastic. You guys are one of the first guys to trust us with a complete renovation of your facility. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's funny, the two main universities in your life, you and Auburn, Miami and Auburn, were some of the first ones to give us a shot as we prepared to do the NCAA championship. So,
yes, sir.
It's definitely a special school in my heart, as a guy who was born in Florida, born in Orlando. Miami, of course, is a huge institution there. So it's always special to me. And it's always just a little bit more special when you have a friend that gets impacted as well. So I'm just so thankful for our friendship, man.
Same here, man. And I appreciate you giving me this platform and this opportunity to tell them a little bit of our story, to tell a little bit more about our background, my background, and hopefully, this chat would give someone some perspective that, hey, don't let what you cannot do interfere with what you want to do. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that, build from what's your goal, what's your vision, what's your why, and really just go after and attack it and put God behind it, and the rest is going to take care of itself for sure.
That's it. That's the way I want to end this episode, right there. I couldn't have said it any better, right there. Ladies and gentlemen, Diego Flaquer.
Thank you, brother.